Before you click away, let me ask you something. Where in the world are you watching from right now? I'd love it if you could drop your location down in the comments. It's amazing to see how far our stories travel. And hey, speaking of stories, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow we've got something incredibly special lined up. An unbelievable tale that'll leave you speechless. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and join our community of storytellers. I can't wait to see you right back here tomorrow. The manager was stealing from his staff until karma hit hard. It was another bustling Friday evening at the Silver Oak Steakhouse, a premier dining destination renowned for its elegance, sophistication, and impeccable service. The dimly lit interior was alive with chatter and laughter as patrons, dressed in their finest attire, enjoyed perfectly cooked steaks and expensive vintage wines. Servers moved swiftly between tables, balancing trays loaded with dishes sizzling with flavor and expertly crafted cocktails. Among these hardworking individuals was Jake Thompson, a 27-year-old server who had built a stellar reputation through years of dedicated service. His easygoing personality and keen attention to detail made him popular among guests and colleagues alike. However, beneath the surface of this upscale dining haven, trouble was brewing. Jake and his fellow servers had recently begun noticing discrepancies in their earnings. Paychecks arrived lighter than expected, and tips, particularly those handed over in appreciation of exceptional service, rarely found their way fully into the servers' pockets. Whispers among staff grew louder each day as speculation turned toward their trusted manager, Robert Mitchell. Mitchell, a confident, polished 45-year-old, had always appeared supportive, but lately his behavior seemed questionable. Slowly, the staff connected the dots. Tips meant to reward their hard work were being quietly siphoned away. Servers discovered mysterious performance fees deducted without clear explanation. They also realized Mitchell often claimed commissions on premium items like high-priced wines, profits intended as incentives for their dedicated service. Though suspicions swirled, proving Mitchell's misconduct was challenging. His charming exterior and managerial authority kept most employees hesitant to speak up directly. Jake himself became increasingly troubled by these developments. He watched friends struggle with frustration, morale dipping lower each passing day. The unfairness stung deeply. Each missing dollar symbolized hours of tireless effort, lost without justification. Determined to uncover the truth, Jake began paying close attention to Mitchell's actions, hoping to find undeniable evidence that would expose the manager's deceptive practices. Yet, as Jake prepared for another busy night serving affluent customers, uncertainty hung thick in the air. Servers exchanged knowing glances as Mitchell passed through the dining area, his confident smile now appearing sinister in their eyes. Jake knew something had to change, but without solid proof, he felt trapped in this tense environment. Little did he realize, that very night would soon provide the opportunity he'd been waiting for, a chance to reveal the truth and finally bring justice to himself and his coworkers. It was on this tension-filled evening, amidst growing suspicion at the Silver Oak Steakhouse, that Jake Thompson's shift took an unexpected turn. Just as he finished setting down fresh silverware at his assigned tables, the hostess approached him with a knowing smile. She quietly informed Jake that a particularly important guest had arrived, a VIP who specifically requested their very best server. Jake adjusted his tie, straightened his posture, and moved confidently toward the exclusive corner booth, reserved only for elite guests who preferred privacy and discretion. Seated at the table was an older gentleman with piercing blue eyes, dressed impeccably in a tailored navy blue suit. His aura radiated authority, yet his welcoming smile immediately put Jake at ease. The man introduced himself simply as William, and with a polite nod, he invited Jake to guide him through the steakhouse's finest offerings. Recognizing this as his chance to demonstrate why he'd earned a reputation as the restaurant's best, Jake launched into his presentation with genuine enthusiasm. Carefully, Jake recommended the restaurant's signature dish, a mouth-watering 24-ounce aged ribeye steak, perfectly grilled to medium rare, and complimented it with a $2,000 bottle of rare vintage Cabernet Sauvignon. To further enhance William's experience, Jake meticulously curated a 5-course meal, carefully explaining each dish's unique flavors and thoughtfully pairing each course with the ideal wine selection. Throughout the evening, Jake remained attentive but unobtrusive, effortlessly anticipating William's needs, ensuring each moment was flawless. William was visibly impressed. He savored every bite, nodding approvingly at Jake's impeccable recommendations. As the meal progressed, their conversation grew warmer. William shared brief anecdotes of his travels and business experiences, maintaining a casual yet dignified demeanor. When Jake presented the final dish, a delicately plated dessert garnished exquisitely, William leaned back, satisfied and deeply impressed. Jake cleared the table with precision, sensing that something remarkable was about to happen. The older gentleman reached slowly into the inner pocket of his finely crafted leather jacket, pulling out a crisp stack of bills. With a warm but serious expression, William discreetly handed Jake a generous tip, $500 in cash, far exceeding Jake's expectations. Lowering his voice slightly, William said, "Outstanding service should always be rewarded directly. You've earned every dollar, son. Don't let anyone take it from you." Jake's pulse quickened. William's words carried weight beyond mere generosity. They echoed Jake's fears and suspicions about the thefts occurring at the steakhouse. Jake graciously accepted the tip, carefully tucking it into his apron. As he walked toward the back room, a lingering sense of foreboding returned. The night wasn't over yet, and the confrontation he'd been dreading was now dangerously close. Jake's pulse quickened as he stepped into the quiet hallway leading to the staff area, the generous $500 tip securely hidden in his apron. Before he could make it safely inside, Robert Mitchell emerged suddenly from the shadows, effectively blocking Jake's path. Mitchell's expression was casual, yet unnervingly cold, his eyes fixed directly on Jake's apron pocket, as if he already knew exactly what was hidden there. With a calm but authoritative voice, Mitchell extended his hand toward Jake. "Hand it over," he said, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Jake felt his stomach twist. He'd anticipated this moment, but facing it directly filled him with dread. He hesitated, meeting Mitchell's unwavering gaze with a determined look of his own. "What do you mean?" Jake asked, carefully maintaining his composure, though his voice trembled slightly with controlled anger. "You know very well what I mean," Mitchell replied, stepping even closer, invading Jake's personal space to emphasize his dominance. The tip. Restaurant policy clearly states that large tips must be handed to management first to be distributed fairly. Jake's frustration began to build rapidly. He knew this so-called policy was nothing but a convenient lie designed by Mitchell to skim money from hardworking servers. Jake remembered vividly the faces of his coworkers, saddened and discouraged by missing tips they'd rightfully earned. Determined not to back down this time, Jake straightened his posture defiantly. "This tip was given directly to me," Jake said firmly, holding Mitchell's intense stare. "The guest specifically stated it was for my service. You have no right to take it." Mitchell's lips curled into a sinister smirk, his voice now dripping with arrogance. Without waiting for Jake to react, he reached swiftly into Jake's apron, boldly snatching the cash from its hiding place. "Well, consider this my commission," Mitchell sneered, folding the bills neatly before slipping them arrogantly into his jacket pocket. Jake felt his fists clenched tightly at his sides, anger surging through him like wildfire. "You're stealing from us!" Jake snapped loudly, his voice echoing in the narrow hallway. "We know what you've been doing. Taking our earnings, cutting our paychecks short. It stops now." Mitchell's face hardened instantly, the smugness replaced by a chilling glare. He leaned in, his voice low and threatening. "Careful, Jake. Remember who you're talking to. I'm the manager here. You're replaceable. If you don't like how I handle things, feel free to leave." An uneasy silence filled the air, tension thick and suffocating. Unbeknownst to them both, however, they were no longer alone. Someone had been quietly observing their heated exchange, preparing to step out of the shadows at precisely the right moment. As tension thickened in the narrow hallway, Jake and Mitchell suddenly realized they weren't alone. From the shadows of the corridor stepped a commanding figure, his piercing blue eyes fixed intently upon them both. Recognition and shock surged through Jake simultaneously. Standing there, calm yet undeniably authoritative, was William Bennett, the VIP guest Jake had served earlier that evening. Mitchell's arrogant demeanor immediately dissolved, replaced by a look of startled panic. His previously confident stance shrank under Bennett's powerful gaze. With quiet authority, Bennett stepped forward into the dim hallway light, revealing a stern expression etched deeply on his face. The atmosphere grew heavy, charged with expectation and suspense. Bennett glanced briefly at Jake, a gentle reassurance in his eyes, before turning his full attention back to Mitchell, who stood frozen, desperately attempting to regain composure. Mr. Bennett, I didn't realize you were still here, Mitchell stammered, his voice faltering uncharacteristically. His bravado vanished completely under Bennett's scrutiny. Bennett raised one hand slightly, effectively silencing Mitchell's anxious excuses before they began. Clearly, Bennett said firmly, his deep voice resonating sharply through the quiet hall, you had no idea I was observing closely from the very table you chose to exploit. From the moment Jake started his exceptional service until your disgraceful theft just now, I've been watching carefully. Jake's eyes widened as the revelation settled upon him. Bennett wasn't merely an influential diner. He was William Bennett, owner and CEO of the Silver Oak Steakhouse. Jake felt his heart accelerate with relief, realizing the implications. Finally, someone in power had seen the manager's dishonesty firsthand. Mitchell struggled to speak, panic edging into his voice. Mr. Bennett, please, there's been a misunderstanding. I was simply upholding the policy. Policy? Bennett interrupted, his voice dangerously quiet. Theft from my employees is not a policy. It's a crime. You've manipulated and deceived my staff long enough, Mitchell. Mitchell's face turned pale, his eyes darting nervously around as the truth unraveled swiftly before him. He opened his mouth to speak again, but Bennett continued without hesitation. I've heard the whispers, seen the lowered morale, and tonight, I've witnessed your corruption firsthand. This stops immediately. Bennett turned slowly back toward Jake, whose heart raced with vindication. A sense of justice filled him with newfound strength and determination. Bennett nodded approvingly toward him, silently acknowledging Jake's courage and honesty in confronting Mitchell. Then, turning once more to Mitchell, Bennett's expression hardened decisively. Your time exploiting my staff is finished. You've betrayed my trust and dishonored my establishment. And now, you'll face the consequences. The hallway fell silent again, charged with the weight of justice finally being served. In the tense silence that followed Bennett's declaration, Mitchell stood frozen, his expression shifting rapidly from shock to desperation. Before he could muster another feeble excuse, Bennett decisively raised his hand, signaling to two security guards who quickly approached from the end of the hallway. Mitchell's eyes widened in panic, realizing his carefully constructed facade was collapsing around him. Escort Mr. Mitchell out immediately, Bennett instructed firmly, his voice steady and authoritative. He no longer represents this establishment or its values. Mitchell struggled futilely as the security guards took hold of his arms, pulling him toward the exit. Wait, Mr. Bennett, please, he shouted desperately, his polished demeanor crumbling into raw fear. Give me another chance. I can fix this. Bennett remained unmoved, his blue eyes icy with resolve. You've had countless chances, Mitchell, and you've squandered them all. Greed has no place here. Mitchell's protests echoed down the corridor, eventually fading as he was dragged through the back door, the heavy slam signaling the end of his reign of dishonesty. Turning slowly, Bennett faced Jake directly, his expression softening into one of deep respect. He reached into his jacket and retrieved the carefully folded stack of bills Mitchell had taken earlier, pressing them firmly into Jake's hand. This belongs to you, Jake, Bennett said sincerely. Your service tonight was truly exceptional, and your courage in standing up against wrongdoing deserves recognition. Jake felt overwhelming relief wash over him as he grasped the money, knowing justice had finally prevailed, not only for himself, but for every hardworking server at the Silver Oak Steakhouse. Around him, whispers grew louder, and soon the hallway filled with Jake's fellow servers, their faces lit with hope and relief. Many exchanged silent glances, grateful that someone had finally taken a stand against the injustice they'd silently endured. Facing the assembled staff, Bennett's voice rang out clearly, resonating through the corridor. From tonight onward, I personally guarantee fairness and transparency at this establishment. Every server, every staff member will receive every penny they've earned. No more hidden fees, no more missing tips. The gathered employees erupted into cheers, their applause echoing powerfully off the walls. Jake felt a proud smile spread across his face as coworkers approached, shaking his hand, grateful and relieved. Bennett smiled warmly, placing a reassuring hand on Jake's shoulder. You've reminded us all tonight, Jake, Bennett said proudly, that integrity always triumphs over greed. Because of your bravery, the Silver Oak Steakhouse has regained its dignity. Jake nodded, humbled and proud. Justice had not only been served, it had transformed their restaurant into a place of honor, trust, and renewed hope. What a story, right? It's not just about a restaurant, it's about standing up for what's right, even when the odds are against you. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you or someone you know was treated unfairly at work? Maybe you've witnessed someone standing up to injustice, or perhaps you've faced a tough decision like Jake. Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And while you're here, let me know where you're watching from. It's always amazing to see how far our stories travel. Your support keeps this channel going, and I'd love to build a community where we can all share and connect. Also, if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We've got another gripping story coming tomorrow that you won't want to miss. Trust me, it's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. So, drop a comment, hit like, and let's keep the conversation going. See you in the next one.